Hi everyone. Friday, July 11th, 2025. My sister's birthday. Happy birthday, Stacy. Not a bad day at all. Not sure if you guys can see me very well. I'm on a particular trail. I don't come down here very often, but as you can see, it's very grown in, very dark. And this particular trail has some higher ground. Lithuania, especially where I live, is generally a pretty flat place, a lot of lowlands, but here there is a ridge. You kind of go up a little bit of a hill, some nice hardwood trees, nut trees, etc. But weather today is not bad. As you can see, it's overcast. It's been kind of rainy and misty, but it's warm. It's probably in Fahrenheit in the lower 60s right now. Supposed to get up to maybe 70 today. And all week's been real decent, really summer-like. You know, we've had a few cooler days, and when I say summer-like, I mean by Lithuanian standards. Upper 60s to around 70, but a lot to share with you in this week's video. I'm going to try to keep this intro short, but there's a lot to talk about, so I don't know if I'll be able to do that. But I do want to, before I get into this week's segments, is to talk about last week's video where I had talked about, oh, it's my 8-year anniversary of moving to Lithuania. I kind of went into some things about, you know, do I regret it? And of course the answer to that is no. It was a good choice. I'm definitely happy living here. But as I rewatched the video, I also realized I may have created more questions and confusion, because I mentioned things like, you know, there are things that I somewhat regret, like I miss the weather in the US, and more importantly, you know, I had mentioned, oh, it's much harder for me. My life is harder here in Lithuania than it was in the USA, and many things are a struggle, and that's true. I still stick to those words, but you know, that might leave you guys saying, well, if life is harder, how can you not regret moving there? How can you enjoy living there? And the simple answer is, I don't know. I've thought about that a lot. Why do I like it so much better here than living in the US? I really don't know, but it just seems to work for me. I'm very happy and satisfied. Maybe the better word is content. Every day I'm just happy to look out my window. But on to this week's video. I'll have a couple different segments. The main segment's going to be about the addition that I'm building onto my shed. I've mentioned that in past videos. I finally did start that. Hopefully that won't be too uninteresting to some of you. It won't be too long. I think it's 4 or 5 minutes. It's part one. Obviously I'm going to have to spread this across several videos. There's going to be different parts of the shed build. Unfortunately, I'm kind of at a standstill right now because I'm still waiting for some of my materials to be delivered. Mostly the Portland cement. I probably, in hindsight, should have just hauled that home in the car rather than having it delivered with all the other materials. But, you know, more to come on that. Hopefully you guys will get a kick out of, or at least understand what I'm trying to do with that shed addition. It's mainly just for additional storage. I'm just out of storage. And of course I will give you a garden and greenhouse update. Some of you might think, you know, why do you keep giving us an update each week? Things really don't change that much. And honestly, one, they do actually change quite a bit from week to week in some cases. And secondly, I do plan at the end of the summer or this fall to do a video, kind of like a time lapse from the start, the spring when I cultivated, until the end of the season, you know, week by week. And when you guys see that time lapse, I think you'll see really how much things change, in some cases quickly, from one week to the next. But I forgot to mention, thank you very much for clicking on the video. I really do appreciate it. I think for some of my new viewers, I need to emphasize that this channel, I don't do it for views. Of course, I love to see people watching it and the number of views go up, but I don't do it for the views. last week's video, I got quite a few views, which is great. Obviously a bunch of new viewers. But just stick with me on this. I'm sure it'll make sense to you at some point in time, because again, I talk about a bunch of different things. This channel isn't about one particular thing such as gardening or ATV. It's about many things, or more to the point, my life. But on to the rest of the video. Well, it's official, sort of. I've started my shed addition project, sort of. I'm still waiting for some materials. You can see way back over there under the tarp. I've got pretty much all the raw lumber or untreated lumber that I need. I'm still waiting for all my treated lumber. I'm still waiting for some Portland cement, but I just figured I'd get started on what I could. And as you can see, how I'm building this is I'm building these little piers. So it's going to be a raised floor up off of the ground. I decided not to pour a concrete slab. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, why I decided to do or not to do a concrete slab. So basically I'm putting in these piers, or these PVC pipes. Obviously I've got a couple done here already with the concrete in them, and I'm putting in these anchors, which I'm gonna go ahead and put some I don't know what they'd be called, joists or boards. That's where the treated wood is going to go, because that's where it's the closest to the damp ground. And then above that, I'm going to have a really good vapor barrier. And then above that, I'm going to have just a plywood floor, and then obviously the walls. I'll kind of stop there and say, you know, if there's any professional builders, obviously you're going to see pretty quickly I'm an amateur. So, you know, try not to be too hard on some of the things I'm doing. For those of you that are not professional builders, or just amateurs like myself, you can do this. If I can do it, you can do it. But basically, you know, to start out is one of the most important things is to get your dimensions. You know, my addition is going to be the full 5-meter length of the shed by 170 centimeters wide. And sorry, I'm going to do everything in metric for my American friends. By the way, I think you all know this, and I've known it for years, but the metric system really is much better than what we do in the US. I'll get off that horse, but basically in my mind I've already converted years ago to the metric system. It's much easier. But anyhow, back to the dimensions again. It's 5 meters by 170, which any schmuck can just measure out 170 centimeters by 500 centimeters and say, I've got it. But you got to make sure it's square, and that's a diagonal line. There's actually something called the Pythagoras theorem that gives you a formula to calculate that. Lucky for us, through the magic of the internet, there's tons of formulas. You can just go online and put in your length and width, and it'll give you what the diagonal needs to be. In my case, it's 528.1 centimeters. So what I've done here is kind of just laid out a grid that's those dimensions. It's going to be off a little bit, just starting with these rough piers. Obviously I'm digging the holes, I'm putting in the PVC, and mixing up concrete by hand, getting them in there. As I'm putting these PVC pipes in, or piers, you know, I am going along, and I'll show you a couple clips here when I'm done talking, but I am going along and making sure that it is level. As far as the actual diagonal or square, I'm getting it as close as I can. I can always true that up once I put the actual boards in. For a shed addition, it doesn't need to be perfect, but it does need to be as square as you can get it. And also I forgot to mention, you know, when I'm putting in these piers, they are lining up with the original or the existing studs on the shed wall, which are 50 centimeters on center, give or take. There's a little bit of wiggle room on there, but the other good thing is my hole digger, my auger, just happens to be the exact same size as my PVC piers, which is 11 centimeters. My PVC piers are 20 centimeters deep, and my auger has a handy little marker that tells me when I'm 20 centimeters deep. It's just a matter of digging your hole, and then of course later on getting it level. I still gotta pour or mix a lot of concrete and get the actual anchors put in, but my PVC is all in. As you can see, we're all level, and on to next steps. And for my concrete, I'm doing 1 part Portland cement and 2 parts sand. I'm not doing any aggregate or gravel. Just works best for me, I think, and I kind of mix it a little bit dry. Every once in a while I get a little more water than I would like, but mix it up and dump it in the PVC. Also, top tip, always keep a bucket of water nearby. You can throw your tools in so the concrete doesn't start to set up on them. So as mentioned in last week's video, our strawberries are about done. Again, the reason for that is this is the first year for these plants. Next year and the following year they should produce a lot more. You can see these little planters have got the spikes that are growing off of the main plants. Those will get transplanted to a different box later this summer, so we'll even have more. I won't go into detail. Still getting a lot of greens. You can see my wife's got a nice bowl of salads and onions. Plenty of that to go around. Everything's doing great. Our cilantro and spinach is going to seed, which is unfortunate, but we didn't get to eating it as quickly as we wanted. Did have a little bit of a problem with our onions. Not a big problem, but my wife is noticing not really mold, but the leaves are not as crisp as they should be. We'll keep an eye on that. Carrots, eating carrots. Let me try to zoom in here. Tons and tons of peas. Maybe the best year for peas we've ever had. I'm sure that's got something to do with how cool it's been. Peas don't really like warm weather. Our outside cucumbers growing like crazy. Many of them are already reaching out and grabbing onto that fence on their own. The rest of them I will guide to the fence. We are actually eating potatoes already. Just a few. They're pretty small, but we made it through. As far as I know, we did not have to buy any potatoes in the last year from the store. Ours from last year just ran out, and now we're starting to eat new potatoes from the garden. I did want to show you here, I had mentioned these before. These are Jamagus, or more to the point, it's kind of a hybrid between wild strawberries and domesticated strawberries. It's a hybrid, but they're white strawberries. It's not that they're not ripe. They are ripe. They are very sweet. As you can see, they're much smaller than a domesticated strawberry, but they're bigger than a wild strawberry. And again, they are white. Very tasty, very delicious. I actually prefer the flavor of these to the domesticated red ones. Our little patty pan here is doing okay. The other one, which I didn't show, is already got some fruits on it. You can see here we do have a kormas in here, or I'm sorry, that's Lithuanian, a mole, not kormas. Plenty of currant berries. Not my favorite. I do like jams and sauces, but to just eat them off of the plant, not my favorite. All of our asparagus is gone to seed. We're not harvesting anything else. That's by design. Zucchini's going like crazy. You can see we've got a few in there already. And as mentioned, our Shilaugus are maybe doing a little bit too good because there's so many heavy berries on the bushes and we're getting so much wind. They're really struggling to stand up. You can see I've got some big sticks in there to try to hold them up. The danger with that is they can rub on those sticks and it'll rub through the branch, and that does more damage than the wind. But if they can keep standing, we should have a good harvest of Shilaugus or high bush blueberries. And in the greenhouse, let me open the door, still kind of cold this morning. Tomatoes doing great. You can see we've got tons of tomatoes, some pretty big in fact. I think we've got a few that are turning ripe. And peppers, as I showed in previous videos, we've got tons of peppers. In fact, I don't know why my wife hasn't picked any yet. Cucumbers in the greenhouse, still producing. You can see we're getting quite a few. Those are starting to wind down. Usually when they get tall enough to the top of the greenhouse, that's pretty much it. They'll have a few more blossoms and cucumbers, but we've harvested quite a bit from them this year already. Been a great year. And I'll leave you guys today with just a quick walkthrough of the flower beds, showing some of the new flowers and colors. Thanks for clicking on the video. Talk to everyone next week.